Welcome back to the Global Greek Influence podcast, Giota Pimenidou. Normally, we explore cutting-edge technologies, often alongside global Greek experts from around the world. But today, I thought I would try something a little different. As someone who works closely in hydrogen production and research, I have seen the momentum building behind hydrogen energy. But what's really struck me lately is how often the conversation turns into a kind of comparison, hydrogen versus nuclear. Two very different technologies, both low carbon, both central to national energy strategies, and both facing their own mix of excitement, skepticism, and serious investment. You are listening to the Global Greek Influence podcast, and I'm your founder and host, Giota Pimenidou, pioneering the future with leading experts in technology, science, and innovation, while also unpacking the political and geopolitical implications that shape them. Follow the Global Greek Influence podcast by Giota Pimenidou on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and your favorite podcasting platforms, because we cover most of them. And do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Giota Pimenidou. You can also connect with us on X at Greek_global and on LinkedIn. So, in this episode, I want to take a step back and give you a broader look, not just at how these technologies work, but how the world sees them, how they are being talked about, funded, and deployed across the globe. What's driving the interest? What's holding them back? And which one seems to be gaining ground faster? Because when we talk about clean energy, hydrogen and nuclear are two big players that come up again and again. They're both considered low-carbon options, and for good reason. They don't release greenhouse gases during energy generation. But how they work and what they offer can be worlds apart. Let's start with hydrogen. This is hydrogen made using renewable electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And when we say renewable electricity, we're talking about solar panels and wind turbines. The great thing is, as we scale up wind and solar power, the cost of producing green hydrogen will come down. Plus, hydrogen has another superpower. It can store energy. Think about it. Sometimes solar and wind produce more electricity than we can use right away. Batteries help, but they've got their limits. Hydrogen gives us a flexible way to take that excess electricity, turn it into fuel and store it, and use it later. Whether that's to power homes, run heavy-duty trucks, or even support the electrical grid during peak demand. It's like having a clean, storable battery that never leaks and does not lose charge. Now, nuclear energy. That's a heavy weight when it comes to reliable power. It's great for generating huge amounts of electricity around the clock. It doesn't emit carbon during operation, which is a big plus, but it comes with some baggage. Think radioactive waste, safety risks, and expensive infrastructure. Accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima still loom large in the public's imagination, even though modern reactors are much safer. And when you line them up side by side, hydrogen versus nuclear, you start to see where each has its place. Nuclear offers high efficiency and consistent output, but it's not nimble or easy to scale. Hydrogen is a bit more versatile. You can produce it locally or at scale, use it in vehicles, homes, industry, you name it. And while it's still catching up in terms of infrastructure, the momentum is strong. In fact, if you look where governments and industries are investing today, you will see hydrogen gaining serious traction as a pillar of future energy systems. So we have covered how they work, how clean they are, and where they are going. But despite all the progress, both hydrogen and nuclear energy are wrapped in myths and misconceptions. Some of them have been around for decades, and they still shape how people think about these technologies today. So let's shift gears a bit and do some myth busting. What's fact and what's fiction? What's based on science and what's left over from sci-fi movies or outdated fears. Let's start with nuclear power, since it tends to be the most controversial one. You know, one of the biggest things people still worry about is safety. When someone hears the word nuclear, their mind often jumps straight to accidents like Fukushima or Chernobyl. And yes, those were serious events that left a lasting impact. But what often gets missed is how much nuclear safety has evolved since then. The reality is today's nuclear plants are built with multiple layers of safety systems, strict protocols, and constant monitoring. They're far from the ticking time bombs people imagine. And what about radiation, one might ask? People sometimes think just living near a plant exposes you to harmful levels. Another thing that puzzles me is the disinformation that circulates that eating a banana exposes you to more radiation than standing near a nuclear plant, thanks to the naturally occurring radioactive potassium in bananas. But the truth is, one banana only gives you about 0.1 microsieverts of radiation. To put that in perspective, you would have to eat roughly 10,000 bananas at once to reach a radiation level close to what's considered a typical medical dose. That said, it's important to note that the type of radiation from bananas is different from the radiation associated with nuclear plants. The radioactive potassium in bananas has a very short half-life and is constantly decaying at low levels inside your body, while radiation from nuclear plants involves different isotopes and exposure types, plus getting a small amount of radiation spread out over time as with bananas is very different from receiving a large dose all at once, which is what really matters for health risks. Then there's the myth that nuclear energy causes climate change. It doesn't. In fact, it's one of the few large-scale energy sources that can run 24/7 without pumping carbon into the atmosphere. But it's not perfect. Uranium mining and waste management do leave an environmental footprint, and nuclear waste remains a challenge, more politically than technically. However, nuclear power isn't without serious geographical and geopolitical considerations. In regions with high seismic activity, such as Japan, which experienced the Fukushima disaster in 2011, earthquake risks add a complex layer to nuclear safety. Turkey, another seismically active country, is currently constructing its first nuclear power plant, Akuyu, on the Mediterranean coast in the Mersin province. The technology and construction are being handled by Rosatom, Russia's state nuclear energy corporation. While Russia is a major global player in nuclear power, there is limited transparency about whether its reactor designs meet the latest international safety standards, especially when deployed in earthquake-prone zones. This factor raises legitimate concerns about long-term safety and accountability. And then there's the issue of waste. High-level waste is the most dangerous form of nuclear waste, mainly consisting of spent nuclear fuel, those fuel rods that have been irradiated inside reactors. This waste remains highly radioactive and thermally hot for thousands of years, requiring secure containment and long-term geological storage. Managing high-level waste safely is not just a technical challenge, it's also a political and social one, as few communities are willing to host permanent disposal sites. And that brings us back to hydrogen, often framed as a dream fuel. You run it through a fuel cell and the only byproduct is water. Clean, simple, and elegant. But there's a twist. Most of the hydrogen we use today is actually made from fossil fuels like natural gas. So while hydrogen itself is clean at the point of use, its production now isn't always green. That's where green hydrogen comes in. Green hydrogen is made by using renewable electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, a process called electrolysis. And by renewable electricity, we are talking about solar and wind power. The idea is that if we can scale up wind turbines and solar farms, not only can we make hydrogen cleanly, but we can also make it more cost-effective over time. And here's where it gets really interesting. Hydrogen doesn't just act as a clean fuel, it also has a huge role to play in energy storage. You know how solar and wind don't always produce electricity exactly when we need it. Sometimes there's too much energy being generated, and we can't store it efficiently with current and effective battery technology. Instead of wasting that excess electricity, we can use it to produce hydrogen. Then that hydrogen can be stored for later use, fed back into the power grid, used in industry, or even piped into homes in the future. So in a way, green hydrogen is not just a clean fuel, it's also a smart bridge between renewable energy production and energy demand. It helps make solar and wind more reliable, more flexible, and ultimately more powerful. Safety is another topic that comes up with hydrogen. People worry about it exploding, and yes, it is flammable, so is gasoline, and so is natural gas. but we use those safely every day because we have built systems to manage them. Hydrogen is no different. With the right handling, it's absolutely manageable. And let's not forget that the idea that hydrogen is some futuristic thing we're not ready for yet. Not true. It's been used in industry for decades. What's new is the vision to use it as a clean fuel, powering vehicles, storing energy, even heating homes. The technology is catching up fast. Hydrogen is future's Swiss knife, but that's not quite how energy transitions work. Hydrogen works best where electricity can't easily go, like powering ships, heavy trucks, or steel production. So instead of being the solution, it's likely to be part of a bigger future economy picture. So have you heard any of those myths before? What did you used to believe about nuclear or hydrogen energy that changed over time? Drop us a message or comment. We would love to hear what you think. You know what's also fascinating? Where the money is going. Because if you want to understand where the future of energy is headed, you've got to follow the investments. Let's start with nuclear. Despite all the public debate, nuclear is very much on the table, and not just in theory. As of late 2023, the world had about 396 gigawatts of nuclear power in operation, and nearly 300 more gigawatts are either planned or under construction. So who is leading the pack? The United States still tops the chart with over 100 gigawatts of capacity. France, no surprise there, is next with 64 gigawatts. And China? It's not only catching up with 58 gigawatts online, it's planning to more than double that, adding another 118 gigawatts in the coming years. That's a 204 increase in China. Other major players, India is scaling up big time, aiming for a 420% jump in their nuclear capacity. Russia, the UK, and even Turkey have significant new capacity in the pipeline. In fact, Turkey is planning around 15 gigawatts, though there are real concerns there, especially since its nuclear plants are built with Russian technology, and we still don't know if it meets modern safety standards in a region as seismically active as where Akku, where their first nuclear power plant is being built. Now, in terms of cash, global investment in nuclear is climbing. It used to average around $50 billion a year between 2017 and 2023, but by the end of 2024, it hit $75 billion annually. According to the International Energy Agency, nuclear power is set to reach a new record in 2025. But costs, project overruns, and financing must be addressed. Renewed momentum has the potential to open a new era for the segment as demand for electricity grows strongly. Private equity and venture capital investment in advanced nuclear companies in 2024 surpassed the total deal value of the past 15 years combined, driven by demand for energy to power the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence. Private equity transaction value in the advanced nuclear sector reached $783.3 million in 2024, 13 times the 2023 total. Over the last 5 years, the National Energy Agency has estimated that over $300 billion has been invested in nuclear energy globally. Here is how this breaks down by region. Europe invests $132 billion, while in Asia Pacific, nuclear power investments are at $106 billion. North America with $35 billion, Eurasia with $17 billion, the Middle East with $12 billion, Central and South America with $8 billion, Africa with $2 billion. To meet net zero targets by 2050, annual nuclear energy investment must increase to $125 billion, a significant rise from the approximately $50 billion invested per year between 2017 and 2023. Switching over to hydrogen, the picture is just as ambitious, if not more so. China continues to dominate the global hydrogen landscape. By the end of 2024, China accounted for nearly 70% of the world's installed electrolyzer capacity, a significant increase from previous years. This rapid expansion is driven by the country's commitment to green hydrogen production, with projections indicating that China will produce approximately 220,000 tons of green hydrogen annually by the end of 2024, passing its national target of 200,000 tons by 2025. In terms of manufacturing, China's electrolyzer production capacity reached 25 gigawatts per year in 2023, representing about 60% of the global total. This capacity is expected to increase further, with projections suggesting it could reach 50 gigawatts by 2030. Chinese companies are also investing heavily abroad. For instance, High Green Energy announced a 2 billion euros investment in a green hydrogen plant in Andalusia, Spain, in partnership with Spanish firm Coxa. Similarly, Envision Group committed $1 billion to establish a plant in Spain for manufacturing machinery used in green hydrogen production. Despite these advancements, challenges remain. Green hydrogen still accounts for less than 1% of China's total hydrogen production, with the majority derived from fossil fuels. Additionally, concerns about the quality and operability of Chinese-made electrolyzers have been raised, particularly regarding their performance under variable renewable energy conditions. Nevertheless, China's investments and strategic initiatives position it as a formidable leader in the global hydrogen economy, shaping the future of clean energy on a massive scale. Germany is pushing forward with 4.6 billion euros across 23 hydrogen projects. Their goal, 10 gigawatts of green hydrogen electrolysis by 2030, all powered by renewables. India is getting a big piece of the development funding pie as well. Out of $7.3 billion pledged by development banks globally, India got 56% of it. India is targeting 5 million tons of green hydrogen per year by 2030. Saudi Arabia is building the world's largest green hydrogen plant as part of the NEOM project, an $8.4 billion investment to produce 600 tons of clean hydrogen a day starting in 2026. Egypt is also stepping up, welcoming around $40 billion in memoranda of understanding with global developers to build out their green hydrogen economy. And in the United States, hydrogen investment is picking up fast too, projected to rise 120% to $1 billion this year. Much of this momentum is thanks to new federal incentives for producing low-emission hydrogen. So what does this all mean? Well, it tells us that hydrogen and nuclear aren't just technologies of the future, they're central to what energy superpowers are backing today. Nuclear is about reliable, always-on energy without carbon. Hydrogen, it's about flexibility, storage, and decarbonizing sectors that electricity alone just can't handle. And the money, it's already moving fast. So when it comes to the big picture, who's cutting through the red tape faster, nuclear or hydrogen? Well, here's the honest answer. It depends on what kind of challenges you're talking about. Nuclear has some of the strongest advocates out there. Scientists, engineers, even climate campaigners who say we can't reach net zero without it. But the truth is, nuclear still moves slowly. Not because the science isn't there, but because the politics, regulations, and public perception are heavy. Building a new plant can take a decade or more, even in countries that support hydrogen. It's a bit of a different beast. It doesn't carry the same baggage. There's no fallout fear, no radioactive waste headlines, and no international controversies over where to bury it. The challenge with hydrogen is more about tech and infrastructure, making green hydrogen cost competitive, scaling up electrolyzer production, and figuring out where it fits best in the energy mix. But governments are acting fast. policies are being written, billions are being thrown behind it, and it's already sliding into places where electrification struggles, like steel, freight, and long-duration storage. So if we are talking about momentum, investment traction, and the ability to cut through the red tape, right now hydrogen is moving faster, and that's where I will leave you today. I'm not saying nuclear is out of the game, far from it. It still has a huge role to play in the clean energy code. But if you ask which one is speeding ahead while the other is still filling out permits and fighting political battles, well, hydrogen's got the wind at its back. Thanks for tuning into the Global Greek Influence podcast. I'm Giota Pimenidou, and if today's episode got you thinking or arguing with your headphones, hit that follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. You can also find me on YouTube under Giota Pimenidou and join the conversation on X at green_global or on LinkedIn at the Global Greek Influence podcast. Until next time.